Call to order the City of Lincoln City City Council meeting, January 23rd, 2012, 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Dick Anderson.
Here.
Gordon Eggleton. Here. Gary Ellingson.
Here.
Chester Norikis. Here. Roger Sprague.
Here.
Henry Quant.
Here.
And Alex Ward.
Here.
Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, public for which one nation, with liberty.
Nice to see folks out tonight. Thank you for coming. Not even raining. It's a gorgeous day, the Oregon coast. So, first item is comments from citizens present and comments from citizens present on agenda and non-agenda items. The purpose of the comments from citizens is to allow citizens to present information or raise an issue regarding items not on the agenda or regarding items that do not include a public hearing. A time limit of 5 minutes per citizen shall apply. I've asked the city recorder to utilize the light system so that the speaker will be informed as to their remaining time and so that we have consistency. As a general rule, this is not a time for an exchange of questions. However, at the conclusion of this agenda item, a counselor can discuss or raise questions regarding something presented by a citizen. We have sign-ups from the back. Craig Billings, please.
That's Craig Billings.
Please come forward right up here. I need you to, sit right down, and you have to get real close to the mic to speak in the mic. So your name and then address would be great.
My name's Craig Billings. I live at 5801 Northeast Voyage Avenue, Unit 14. That's Lincoln City. I read in the paper last week that a Lincoln City government body had extended the Cascade Head development up on the north end of town, a 2-year extension on their permit, and that this body was thinking about vetoing that or perhaps shortening up that term. This is the first time I've been here, so I don't know what took place at that meeting other than what I read in the paper. But my concern is that even though everyone, especially the developer, is very frustrated that this development hasn't moved forward, I think the main cause is the economy. And I don't think there's any other developer that's jumping at the bit to take this over. So my concern is if the term is shortened up less than the 2 years, it's probably going to be difficult to get financing. I know I talked to Mr. Teeney once informally when I just happened to run into him, and I didn't think that it was going to work at all with the economic climate and problems he's had with lenders. It just seems that if he doesn't get the extension and then doesn't get the financing, it's just going to go into bankruptcy. And if that's the case, we may never see anything get developed up there. And they've got all that infrastructure, the road and the sidewalks and underground utilities and things. Now, granted, the city spent a lot of money on that big water tank up there. And I don't know what other things the city's paid for to support this development. But my feeling is that it would be very short-sighted just because of frustration, etc., to cause this thing to just shut down. And if it doesn't really cost the city anything to wait 2 years, we'd be wiser to just be patient. That's all I got to say.
If you don't mind, hold. Mr. Hawker, could you help me remind the audience that, Mr. Billings, the action taken last council was actually, City Council chose to not act on that. It's actually send it back to planning for review of some of the
Kathy?
Called it up, yeah. But, and,
My understanding, I wasn't there.
Right.
Was that the intent was to call it up, meaning that there would be another hearing before the city council. And that would be to review the decision, not necessarily to reject it, but to review it.
correct. That's what I wanted to get, that actually no decision had been made
Right.
on that.
That's correct.
And quite frankly, again, I appreciate your interest in this. One of the things, this, again, had a hearing at planning. So, again, there would have been a good time at the planning commission process, the public hearing on the issue, because what you would have heard is more detail than what the newspaper allows in there. And you'd hear more of the concerns and discussion around it. And that's what we would hope to do when it comes before us. Is that
Right.
fair?
Absolutely, and I would suggest that if you can, come back at that hearing so that your comments will be part of the record. Because
Okay.
these comments...
When will that be?
I don't know that we set a date. Yeah.
I can't remember whether it was the first or second meeting in March, but there will be a public notice.
In March.
Yeah.
And you can call City Recorder's office here anytime, and we can keep you informed on that.
Okay.
Okay?
So thank you. Thank you
Mayor,
for coming.
I should correct that we did not invest in the tank for the villages.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Billings. Mr. Warner.
My name is Jerry Warner. I live at 1233 Lakewood, Lincoln City. I'm here again tonight. I've been here previously to talk about urban renewal. However, I feel that strongly enough about it that I need to run some of these comments by you again. Originally, when the urban renewal went in, there was 62 advisory members that participated in urban renewal, Roger Sprague being one of them. However, of course, they were all basically phased out, and it falls back on the city council. The current, I should say, that you as a current council were not responsible for many of the things that happened by the previous city councils in creating the urban renewal. However, no matter how you look at it today, you are responsible for the end result of this urban renewal. And I know that some of you have never even read the urban renewal law completely, and I certainly would like to see everybody familiarize themselves with that. I've spent a lot of time looking into urban renewal, and because of my interest in urban renewal, which I think is a very beneficial thing, I feel that I've talked to 6 different cities about their urban renewal projects, and actually spent some time with some of their people involved in it. And I guess my big concern is the way this urban renewal is being operated, and mainly I'll get into that as I go through to it. But first of all, the tremendous expense that this city is spending on maintaining an urban renewal office, which at best is nothing more than a part-time job. There might be times when it takes a little more than part-time work to operate it, but mostly between projects it does very little. And as an example, Newport, which has a bigger urban renewal than we do, they don't have any urban renewal director, they don't have an assistant director, they use the people that they already have in place, which are professionol people, to put the planning together for it. Seaside is another example. It's part-time city staff running it. 2 other cities in the Willamette Valley, the same process, and I've talked to them extensively. But I just want to put it a little bit in perspective to you, that they've all indicated that it's not a full-time job. Let's take a look at Kaiser as an example, a population of 38,000 people. And they have a large urban renewal district, which is responsible for the ball field and some of the other things that have happened over there. And actually, they have their community development director charges 1/3 of his time to urban renewal. Let's even go a little bit further here now. Here's Salem as an example. It has 8 urban renewal districts in operation. One of them is inactive right now. However, 7 of them are active. Their total urban renewal money is $500 million. They have an urban renewal director there that gets paid $112,000 a year. Now let's look at the comparison. That's over 10 times what Lincoln City, the volume of work that Lincoln City has. Here we've got a situation where you're paying an urban renewal director $97,000, and when you put benefits on top of it, you're looking at close to $130,000. And this, I feel, is completely wrong. There's just absolutely no comparison. And most of them, when I talked to them, said, what in God's world would they need for a little urban renewal district, need an urban renewal director and an assistant director? It's, to me, it's totally irresponsibility as far as a city manager ever paying that kind of money out, and he's the one that hired them, and he's the ones that maintaining those positions. It wasn't you folks that did it, but you're the ones that are going to be having to make these decisions on what goes on in urban renewal. The mission statement for urban renewal: to eliminate blight and depreciating values and attract job-producing private investments that will improve property values. That has not happened, and I'd be willing to argue that with anybody. Ensure the traffic flow. It's been a detriment. Encourage the expansion and development of businesses that will produce jobs for people of Lincoln City. That hasn't happened. These are all your mission statements and the goals of this city. And I think that it's failed miserably, and I think that you need to, as a city council, sit down and take a good, hard look on what's happening here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Braden Criswell, please.
Braden Criswell, 6269 Northeast Mast. And there are 2 parts to my presentation tonight. Number 1 is I'm speaking to the ordinance 201201. Do you want me to hold off on that?
Nope.
Do it all now?
Bet.
Okay, here we go. On behalf of the Rhodes End Water District, regarding amendments to LCMC 13.12.100, we continue to object to any ordinance that defines delinquency such that it forces consents to annex. As we told you before, your draft ordinance tortures the definition of delinquency. As Roger Middleton so eloquently informed you at our last council meeting on January 9th, your draft ordinance does not comport with Oregon legislative intent. Your process as drafted does not really provide due process. Your way is not the Oregon way. And the second thing, tonight, hand deliver you 24 notices of tort claim from aggrieved property owners in the Rhodes End who declined to be held hostage by Lincoln City and who denounce your willful and wanton intention to create a serious health hazard by shutting off water to established pre-existing accounts. Thank you.
Your second item?
That was the second
That was it? Okay. Didn't want to cut you short.
No.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Are there anyone else in the audience that wishes to make comments and didn't get the opportunity to sign up? Now would be the time to come forward. Hearing none, then we will move to the next item, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda, these are items that are considered routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any counselor may request that an item be removed for separate discussion and action. The consent agenda consists of, number 1, request to read ordinance first by the title only. Number 2, resolution number 2012-02, a resolution of the City of Lincoln City granting consent to annexation by the City of Lincoln City of city-owned property in the Roads End area of Lincoln County. Number 3, Oregon Liquor Control Commission change of ownership, the Cruise Inn. And number 4, Wacoma Water Waste Pump Station Electrical Upgrade Award. Are there any requests to remove items?
Mayor, I'd like to pull two.
Pull 2. Any other removals? Hearing none, entertain a motion for the consent agenda to approve items 1, 3, and 4.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 1, 3, and 4. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Okay. Mr. Sprague, number 2?
I want to make sure that I'm talking about the same number 2 that you mentioned. The the agenda that I have here only shows 3 items under the consent agenda. The number 2, the one I wanted to talk about, was that change of ownership at Oregon with that liquor license application.
Oh, that, okay, that's number 3.
That's number 3. Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
that's why the mix-up. Anyway, I see that place is closed, not operating, and I just wanted to make sure that was going ahead before we approve that.
Correct. This is a new owner, and the new owner makes a request for liquor license.
Right.
And this is what we're dealing with to
I
get the
understand
new
that.
owner.
I just want to make sure that before we approve that we know that they are going ahead.
The best they've made application for the process. So I don't know how to answer your question.
Well, most of the time when that happens and when there's a change of ownership, they don't shut the building down, and that's my concern.
Yeah.
I just
But
want
this is a new name. My understanding has been purchased, and they've made...
And they're going ahead.
Right.
Okay.
They're going through the hoops anyway to get a liquor license, which would be crucial for a
that's
bar,
correct.
I would think.
Okay, based on that, I had no information about it, and there was questions. So I would move that we...
Well, we've already got that one approved, so it's the one that we pulled was the resolution number 2012-02.
Okay.
This is to move city property,
Right.
annex city-owned property that's currently in the county.
Okay, so that's number 2 then?
Correct.
Okay, I would move that we approve number 2.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve consent item number 2, which is resolution number 2012-02, a resolution of the City of Lincoln City granting consent to annexation by the City of Lincoln City of city-owned property in the Roads End area of Lincoln County. All those in favor, say aye. Oh,
Mayor, just one quick clarification. I just wanted to clarify that the resolution is effective as of today's date.
okay. Is that any problem with the motion for approval then? All right, just clarification. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none? All right. We then have special order of business. This would be the appointment of a planning commission individual. And as folks may and council knows, we've been going through the interview process of planning commissioners. There's been 2 empty seats. We interviewed 7 applicants for these 2 seats, Councilor Sprague and myself. We've selected a couple individuals, and in time to get on this agenda. Only one finished the process. So tonight, what we've got actually is the recommendation of the interview committee would be to approve or appoint Douglas Evans to the Planning Commission, and be pleased to raise the question. We've got other ones to fill the other seat already in the process, but the reference checks, professional checks, and background checks haven't been completed. Otherwise, we'd have both. Any questions on this or the process?
I just have a comment, and that is that we interviewed 7 people, and we interviewed 7 strong applicants, all of which I think are very well qualified. And Douglas Evans, the person that we're recommending this evening, came across very strongly.
Actually, as I recall, he has background in other planning commission positions too.
Wasn't he a land use attorney, or
No, not this gentleman. That was not this gentleman. Yeah. But so with that, I would, if no further questions, I would entertain a motion to have Douglas Evans appointed to the Planning Commission.
I would so move.
Sir, there's a motion to appoint Douglas Evans to the Planning Commission with a second. Does this need a... So just all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with an A? Hearing none. And you'll, just so the council is aware, there'll be a lot more coming from Parks and Rec and Art and VCB and Planning. So there's a lot of appointments that have been going through the process, past the interview. So you'll see more of those at the upcoming meetings. Okay. Then another item on the agenda is the Habitat for Humanity land transaction. As you may recall, this was where the city had sold some property to Habitat, building lots. Over time, Habitat informed us they weren't able to build on this particular lot, and asked us to take it back, let them out of their contract of sale. And we delayed action on it, so you Councilor Sprague and Councilor Ellington could kind of look at it and work through. So at this point, open for either put a motion on the table to accept the process of taking back the property, and then we can have discussion. Is there...
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Because I believe this was basically delayed from the first time this question was asked of us, primarily because of me, and maybe secondarily Mr. Sprague. I just wanted to reiterate my report from the last meeting, that being that upon further investigation, namely me meeting with Ron Tierney, I determined that it would be very beneficial for us to take this property back at this time, and we could, as a narrative in this transaction states, leave this property in our kind of affordable housing inventory, so accomplish that. Later on, we may decide to see how we could correct some of the issues with the property so that a house could be built on it, but that's not what this decision is about. And so I would like to recommend, and I made a report to Mr. Sprague concerning this, and so I would like to recommend that the council accept this property back from Habitat.
I'll consider that a motion.
I would like to make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go ahead and take Habitat up on their offer to bring back the property to the city of Lincoln City. Being tangible item, do we need a roll call vote? Okay.
Want? Anderson?
Yes.
Ward?
yes?
Eggleton? Ellingson?
Yes.
Norikis? And Sprague?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And thanks for looking into that, you two counselors, because it's always worthwhile. If there's a question, we can get some more information. So, and I know you were pursuing other avenues to assist them.
We'll try.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Next item of business is department and committee reports, and we have audit report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your council package, you had a copy of our fiscal year 2010-2011 audited statements for both the city and for the Urban Renewal Agency, as well as a letter of recommendation from our auditors. You may recall last year we had a new audit firm come in, so this is our second audit with them, TKW from Portland. I'd like to introduce Rob Moody, who's a partner with TKW.
Thanks, Debbie. And Mayor Anderson and members of the council, thank you for taking some time out of your agenda this evening and allowing us to be here. Again, my name is Rob Moody. I'm the partner in charge on the city's audit and have been for both years of the engagement. Again, thank you. It's nice to get in front of the council with our clients. We believe it's part of the relationship. We work directly for the council as your independent CPAs. We work closely with the staff, but we answer to you. So, again, thank you. In terms of just a quick summary, the audit, as Debbie mentioned, was the second of the contract and went very well this year. It was a vast improvement for both of us from the first year. That first year of an audit engagement can be tricky. As you know, we get to know the city and the city gets to know us, and transitioning from your previous audit experience to working with our firm. But this year's field work, what we call field work, was very, very smooth. We had a solid team in the field. The city was ready for us when we got here. They provided everything we asked for. They were very responsive, and everything went very well from that perspective. Your staff met all of our expectations in terms of the audit arrangement. So for that, they're to be commended. Debbie and her staff and Ron did a great job of working with our team, and we're very grateful for that. We, on our end, have a couple of things that we're going to work on this year, a couple of adjustments in terms of how our team worked on the audit so that we can get you statements in a little bit more timely fashion. You know, it's the first of the year following your year end in June 30th, and we'd like to move that ahead a little bit. You know, we finished audit field work in September or October, so we're going to make some adjustments on our end to try and see if we can't get you a little bit more timely information. In terms of our opinions on both the urban renewal and the city reports, that's what you pay us for. We give you an opinion on whether or not those financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, and we were able to provide what we call an unqualified or a clean opinion on both statements, both sets of statements. That's the highest level of assurance that we can give you as your independent CPAs. There was a couple three budget over expenditures that were noted in our report in the back, and Debbie covered those very well in her summary that she provided you, along with the packet of our reports, as well as her responses to our recommendations. I took a look at those, and those seem to be adequately presented. And again, you know, when I was sitting here last year talking with you, we had some fairly significant recommendations and comments to talk to you all about, and I'm happy to say all of those were resolved to our satisfaction. You know, the things that we brought out as recommendations this year are on a scale relative to last year are fairly insignificant, really. They're things that we believe the city can continue to work on to continue to strengthen their internal controls, but we're not looking at big issues this year. So again, your staff's to be complimented on the way they addressed the way they address those issues, and you're to be complimented for your support of the staff in that endeavor. A couple of things that were kind of new this year, if you will. GASB statement number 54. We talked about that last year when I was here, that it was going to change the look of your financial statements, and true to form it did. Your governmental fund statements and your financial statements have a little bit new look in that the fund balance piece, instead of being sliced into reserved and unreserved, now has been sliced up into about 5 different buckets, and you can see those if you flip to those pages. So I could give you a quick reference if you're interested. The page number for the governmental fund balance sheet is at page 13. Sorry, I left my glasses in the car. But you'll see fund balance is categorized there, or detailed out as to whether it's non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, or unassigned. And those are the new terms that were brought into being, if you will, under GASB 54. The other thing that GASB 54 did was it defined what could and could not be reported as a governmental fund. And the city had a number of funds that didn't, for lack of a better term, didn't meet the criteria for reporting under GAAP as an individual fund. So for reporting purposes only, the city aggregated those into the general fund in accordance with the guidance that was offered. And that's what you see on page 15. Sorry. Page 15 there in terms of the restatement. In the general fund, you see a restatement of about $1,762,000 at the bottom there. And what that is that's taking the $1.7 million that was in these other funds and just closing it into the general fund for reporting purposes only again. For budget purposes, those funds are maintained individually in your accounting system, and you'll also find individual budget to actual schedules in the back of your statements. So operationally, there was no change. This is just a reporting requirement in accordance with GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. The other change that the city made this year was sort of a shift to best practices in how it accounts for its loans to third parties. The city has a number of loans through your affordable housing or some of those programs where previously those loans, as they went out and as they came back in, ran through the income statement, which is accepted under governmental accounting. Best practices, though, state that it's more of a balance sheet only kind of a thing, more like you and I would, if you and I made a loan to someone, you'd give them the cash and record a receivable. Now, that's the way the city's accounting for those now. So there was an adjustment or a part of the restatement, again on page 15, in that fourth column over. That's the results of the impacts of that change to best practices. And we concur with that treatment and support that in the financial statements. Again, no change operationally at all. It's just a reporting thing. We've already, and I guess in addition to your financial statements, you also have a report to the council. Again, I won't go through that with you, but you can read that at your leisure. We've met our required standards by providing you that in writing. There's some nice summaries in there about things that went on during the audit and what didn't go on during the audit, more importantly. For example, there were no disagreements with the staff, and we didn't get into any areas or conversations where there's no guidance. So those kinds of things would be brought up to you if we had. We've already kind of started talking. I met with Ron Tierney just for a few minutes before the meeting, and we've already started talking about scheduling for the next year. We hope to be in sometime in the April-May time frame for interim testing this year. Take a look at controls and update those records so that when we come back in September for the final audit again, things will go real smoothly again. So we look forward to that. I guess to wrap up, I just again want to thank the city and their staff for for contributing to a pretty smooth audit process, and I want to recognize Debbie and her staff for the huge improvements that were made in a relatively short period of time between the first audit and the second audit. I'd be happy to entertain any questions that the council may have.
Mr. Moody, thank you for the comments and certainly the compliments to staff. It's always appreciated if from an outside party saying it. We think we've got good staff, but it's like to be reaffirmed. Would you mind just taking a moment to make sure, given the public that's viewing, and whenever the public hears, and ourselves, when we hear audits, often it means chasing the money or following, all the dimes and nickels. But that's really not the case in this type of audit, correct?
That's correct.
Could you give us kind of a short synopsis again of this audit?
Sure.
The type of
25 words or less. What the city is required to obtain and did obtain in accordance with statute, if you will, is a financial statement audit. The purpose of which is to provide an opinion that the financial statements as presented are correct in all material respects. There's a couple of key terms there. Material being, in our opinion, there's no big mistakes in these financial statements. Nothing that would cause them to be misleading or nothing that would cause the user of the financial statements to be misled. Users of the financial statements are your citizens, bond investors, the rating agencies, the folks that get involved when you issue debt, for example, and yourselves in terms of management use of the documents. So how do we do that? We begin the audit by getting an understanding of your internal control structure over all of the major business practices, cash receipts, payroll, capital assets, etc. Based on that understanding, then, we do what we call walkthroughs, where we'll select a transaction or two in each of those areas and walk them through their entire process to make sure that the documentation of the understanding that we have truly is correct. It just verifies that our documentation is correct. Then we step back and do a risk analysis. And that risk analysis considers both inherent risk, type of accounts or types of transactions that we're dealing with and how risky they might be just on their own, and control risk. Control risk is the risk that an error could occur and not be either prevented or detected and corrected by your control structure. So we take those two assessments and combine them, and then based on that resultant risk assessment, we evaluate whether there are any what we call risks of material misstatement. That's basically the risk that an error could happen and cause your financial statements to be materially wrong. Based on all of that, then we design some audit procedures to reduce whatever risks we've identified to a reasonably low level. And so there's all kinds of different audit procedures that we do, including talking to city staff. We review samples, if you will, of source documents. Debbie will tell you, we ask for a lot of stuff. We ask for copies of checks, we ask for copies of invoices, we look at payroll records, we look at personnel files. We don't look at every transaction, though. It's not a fraud audit. It's not a forensic audit where we're, looking at every single thing that went on. It's a sampling. It's statistical in nature. There's some auditor judgment involved in it in terms of what we look at. We've been doing this for a while, and we typically can get a pretty good handle on, if there's going to be a problem, we typically know where to look for that. And so we'll do some of that. We do analytics, and then when we're all done, we step back and we look at all of the evidence that we've accumulated in all of these areas, and we make sure that we have coverage over all the major operations of the city that allow us to support our opinion. And it goes through several levels of review once all that audit work's done. My field team is out here. They have a senior that reviews all of the work. We have a manager that reviews it. I review it. And then we have a cold technical quality reviewer that reviews certain pieces or certain risk areas of the audit. So it goes through a lot of work. I hope that answers your question.
Well, that did, and you touched on the pieces that I wanted the public to hear. It's a process and making sure our processes are working and then checking the data, but it's not a fraud audit, and that's so.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
May I ask?
Please. Yep.
You're Mr. Talbot?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm Rob Moody.
Rob Moody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Talbot retired.
Corvo. I'm sorry.
All three of the named partners have retired.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I didn't catch that. I'm curious, now that you've done this work for the second year in a row, with the type of audit that you certify, is there a qualification that we have to meet? And so you have a standard relative to the certification that we now have? I'm just trying to figure out, there probably would be businesses other than your own that do the same type of work, right? And do you primarily do work for cities?
Yeah, our firm primarily does government audit work. That's all I do. I run our government practice. We do about 30 of these a year, and 75% of our audit practice as a firm is government work.
Okay, so now that the work is done, we have a certificate for this past year that you did.
Yeah, the opinion on page, I think it's 1. The opinion is basically that statement that the financial statements are prepared and materially correct in our opinion.
And we need to make sure we do that every year.
Correct. You're required by law.
Yeah, with a company that is certified like yours.
Oh, I think I understand now. Yeah, in order to sign a government audit report in Oregon, you have to be a licensed municipal auditor, which I am.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Last question.
Okay.
Because you do a multiple of these, and you gave us the best review, a good review, which is the best that you can give to someone that you audit. I don't know if this would be right for me to ask you this.
I think I know where you're going, and I'm probably not going to be able to answer it.
Okay.
If you're going to ask me to compare you across my other clients, I try really hard not to do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Every city is different. Basically, the overall audit standards that apply to governmental audits are the same, but every entity is unique in their internal control structures, in the types of transactions they're doing, in a lot of different ways. And I think that's one of the things that we do well, is that we tailor our audit approach to each individual client. I won't take my approach for the city of Beaverton and bring it in here and lay the audit programs down and tell my team to go to work. We tailor those programs every year to what we've read in your minutes and to what we know is going on in Lincoln City. We get alerts over the internet every time something pops up in the newspaper about Lincoln City. I get a lot of alerts, not just on Lincoln City. But your last item there, I leaned over to Debbie and I said, don't forget to record that property coming back from Habitat, because I'm going to look at that. It's a tailored approach, and it is really difficult to compare, if you will, entity to entity. Like I said, it's easier to compare over time for an existing entity, and the improvement since last year has been marked.
Let me jump in on, particularly for anybody that's new or anybody that's listening in. When we did a switch, and it was a routine switch of auditors, because we had the previous auditor for something like 10 years or so on. And at some point you want to say, let's get some fresh eyes in here.
Yeah, not anymore, though.
Yeah, typical.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. And we sent an RFP out to firms that did local government audits. And came to council. I think there was about four, was there four?
Or 5.
4 or 5. We recommended to council the one that happened to be the most expensive of the bunch, had what we thought were the highest qualifications and highest restrictions as far as, for example, direct access to the city council. The only firm that asked for that. We felt that we needed some fresh eyes and good eyes looking at our, and I've got to tell you, I think that most small cities are simply going to look at the bottom line dollars, how much is it going to cost, and take a cheap audit. We didn't recommend that. We didn't get it. Not that it's an extravagant audit. I don't mean that. We're getting good value for what we're paying. We did not recommend the cheapest. We recommended the best. And I think we got it.
Just as an illustration, we had several people from their company here 4 weeks on site for 4 weeks, several of them, and they spent the whole time looking at stuff.
We never had that before.
Never, yeah.
That was during the good weather time, too, wasn't it? So I'm surprised.
Not all of it.
Other questions from council? Just please.
Mr. Moody, in your independent auditor's report, page 96, under compliance, halfway through the paragraph, the first half refers to Oregon revised statutes and Oregon administrative rules, and after that reference, the sentence in the middle of the sentence, non-compliance with which could have a direct and material effect on the determination of financial statement amounts. However, providing an opinion on compliance with those provisions was not an objective of our audit, and accordingly, we do not express such an opinion.
Correct.
Paraphrasing that, it seems to me that says you need to comply with Oregon revised statutes and Oregon municipal corporations, but we don't have an opinion on whether you did or not, in spite of the audit.
That's reasonably accurate, because we don't look at every transaction. What we did is we looked at what we thought was enough to state that we didn't find anything that showed you were out of compliance except for these 3 over expenditures. It's a tricky thing in auditing standards, if you will. The state requires you as a city to comply with these things. They require us to look at these things. But this is the level of assurance that they require us to give, which isn't a lot. They don't require us to give you an opinion on whether or not you complied. They require us to look and report on anything we do or don't find. I'll give you a contrasting view, if you will. It's been a while, I think, since you guys have had a federal single audit compliance audit. In that situation, when we come in and we look at specific federal funding programs, we do give a very specific opinion on whether or not you complied with the requirements of those federal programs. But that's what's required there.
And is that because you look at every piece of information, every transaction?
No, but it is
ours?
a deeper dive than what's required here. The federal audit, what we call government auditing standards and audits under Circular A133 are very specific about the audit procedures to be applied. We don't get a lot of latitude in how we audit those things. And it's a much more, they're bigger samples, there's just a more robust approach, if you will.
That particular audit is triggered on how much federal grant money you receive, so it's not a optional or...
Right, it's not, when you have to have it, you have to have it. So I'm not sure I answered your question. Your observation, I think, is pretty accurate.
And as a result, I'm wondering what's the value of the audit, if you're not giving us an opinion on...
Okay. This is just one small piece of the audit. This is just compliance with these 8 bulleted items set out in statute. That's all this report addresses. The whole rest of the audit is over the rest of this document in terms of the financial transactions that went on with the city.
Okay.
That's what my opinion on page 1 relates to.
Okay.
Does that help? Okay. Thank you.
You know, Mr. Rudy, that does raise a question that I'm, as a citizen, I often have, especially whether it's audits or certifications. You know, we're a society that used to rely on Moody's and AAA and, you know, different ratings of different things, and not investigators, but other audit into banks and Wall Street, and have come to, you know, realize that they probably didn't have the value that we relied on them. So could you help me get comfortable with, you know, I know we write the check and we welcome the look, but, you know, again, the safeguards, have there been new safeguards in your world to be certified?
Yeah.
So that, you know, you're under a little more scrutiny than you were yesterday, perhaps?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. In terms of being, first of all, being a CPA, we're required to take 80 hours of education every 2 years. And we have to spread that over the 2 years. You can't take it all in the last 2 months of your period. To be a licensed municipal auditor in Oregon, a certain number of those hours, 24 to be exact, have to be in government areas. To be an auditor under government auditing standards, that same 24 hours has to be focused in government, but the other 56 hours have to be in audit areas specifically, as opposed to, you know, IT or tax or whatever. So that's the education piece. The auditing standards are continually changing, and it seems like forever ago now, but it was probably about 4 years ago, a whole new set of auditing standards came out. They were called the Risk Assessment Suite of Standards. It was Statement on Auditing Standards number 104 through 111. And basically it was a response to some audit failures, if you will, the Enrons and the WorldComs and those types of failures. You got to remember, auditing standards don't just apply to governments. They apply to all audits, large, small, you know, Nike to the city of Lincoln City. And there was enough perceived audit failures going on that they really reworked those standards, causing us to change the way we look at an audit, how we plan those audits, how we document our work. We're a paperless audit house, meaning all of our work is done on a laptop. Those files, though, are huge in terms of meeting the documentation standards. We're required to undergo an external peer review every 3 years, where we go out and pay another firm to come in and review a representative sample of our work. Well, because we do so much government work, they typically look at 3 or 4 of our government engagements for that year, as well as samples of everything else we did that year. And they do a pretty deep dive on those. They look at our work papers, they look at the reports that were issued, they interview our staff, they look at our hiring practices, they look at our performance evaluation practices with our staff. There's all these standards that have to be met. Because we're members of the AICPA Government Audit Quality Center, in those years where we don't have an external peer review, we're required to do an internal peer review on ourselves. So we appoint one of our managers to run that every year, and they basically go through the same checklist. We had our meeting this morning in the office where to go over the results of our internal peer review, and they found some things that we could do better in terms of our documentation. So we're continually learning and training our people to try and meet all of those standards. I don't know if that answers your question.
That helps. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Interesting reading, probably about 11 o'clock at night. It's good. You know,
ouch.
Well, there weren't a lot of
don't
pictures.
need to do that.
You know, I didn't see a lot of
of
pictures.
pictures.
You know, but it was interesting reading, and I appreciate and Debbie getting it to us all to review, and so...
Well, I appreciate the questions and the interest by the council. I do a lot of these presentations, and sometimes they can't get me out of the room fast enough. So I appreciate the fact that you're interested, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the process. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I assume we'll see you maybe later this year.
Yes, you will. Especially you, because we get a chance to sit down and have a conversation every year. So
Yeah, we have.
thank you again.
Thanks, Mr. Moody. All right, and staying with the financial theme, we have some quarterlies, huh?
Okay, we have a quarterly report. This is a report that goes from July through December, so it's a half-year mark. Standard format that we've been using for a little while. The first column of numbers shows July through December of last year, and the second column shows the total for last year, so you can compare how much of the total was spent halfway through the year. And then the last column show July through December of this year compared to the budget. Did have some items this time actually that I wanted to kind of point out or talk about a little bit. On the first page is the general fund. Couple revenue items. The business and occupation tax revenues are down some. I'm going to do a little more research on this. If this continues into the third quarter, I will have some more information on this, but I'm not sure if we're not getting as many renewals or if the payments are coming in slower or what's up with that, but it's a little down.
And aren't business licenses due in January? I mean, these aren't scattered through the calendar year, are they?
Right. It's a one time. They're due all at once currently.
So it may be a lag item. Other than you're not that far off, though you're below the previous year. Quarter,
yeah, it's not a huge number, but payments could just be coming in slower this year, or the process got started later or something. Okay. So, state shared revenue. We were conservative on that budget and actually budgeted a decline. So far, it's keeping pace with what we got last year. So that's hopefully will stay the same, and we'll actually come ahead on that line item. County revenues. This is a timing issue. The first payment that we received from the library district was actually last year. It was actually posted on January 6th. And this year it happened to get posted in December, so that's just a timing. Fines and forfeitures are down, and that's primarily our municipal court revenues. There are other revenues in that grouping, but the decrease is primarily related to our court. So that's another line item I'll probably be kind of watching real closely over the next quarter.
Well, we can talk to the judge on that. Can we get him up?
Well, it could be a variety of things. The court, our accounting system is primarily, I call it modified accrual. It's primarily cash basis, and so our court fines don't get reported as revenue until they're actually paid. So it has more to do with the payment cycles than what's actually being assessed as a charge.
Now, you take credit cards out of the court system fines, is that correct? Or they're able to pay fines now by credit card. So with those, you get immediate versus the payment plan?
Yeah. I was hoping that would make that number go up. Maybe he hasn't been in long enough to have it yet. Those are all the comments I had on the general fund revenues, unless there's questions.
Your Honor.
Yes.
On transfers in, Debbie, it looks like we're down, I wouldn't say considerably, but we're down.
We made a couple structural changes in this current year. We moved, for example, the information technology department. In fiscal year 10-11, it was in the general fund.
All right.
It's now in an internal service fund and being allocated. And so because we reduced the transfers from other funds into the general fund, because those transfers were no longer paying for IT costs.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Debbie, what percentage of the fines and forfeitures that we've got would you figure are paid by credit card?
I haven't actually looked at that. I meant to do that before this meeting, but
reason I'm asking is because I know that we're charged a percent for any credit card payments that are made, and I was wondering, is there any way that you can add that percentage to the fine to cover that cost?
My thought on that was the convenience fee that we charge is being tracked separately from the credit card cost, so that we can ensure that convenience fee is offsetting that cost, so that the cost of the credit card is not being deducted from the court revenues.
Oh, okay.
But
we're paying it somewhere.
Yes.
But we're receiving it as well. We're receiving a fee. We approved a fee schedule
Yes.
last month or something that, a couple of months ago, I guess, that allowed finance to charge a convenience fee that we add on to the actual charge in order to cover that cost we're speaking to.
That was my concern.
But it's not a percentage, because that we can't do, right?
Right.
It's a flat fee amount.
Okay.
And we have to adjust that up or down after we get some real-life experience.
So we're not really coming out behind on that then?
Well, we won't over time.
Right.
We may be ahead and we may be behind, but we'll adjust it. And I think that was part of the fee schedule, that we would adjust that.
Okay, that was my concern. Thank you.
Debbie, again, just pointing out to the public, the property taxes and certainly the real estate economy or overall economy we're in now, we're not that far off, what we budgeted plus previous year revenue at this time through property taxes. So,
yes, property taxes are very, very close. They're
right
on. Yeah. And in total, our total revenues in the general fund are right on track, too. Those two that I mentioned were relatively small pieces.
Yeah. No, I guess that's, and I for the sake of redundancy, but I think, Debbie, you and Mr. Hawker have told us during budget times that the revenue is actually the easy part of the equation, because it is pretty refined and anticipated. And you're, again, reflecting here, able to anticipate it very closely. It's the expense side that
So far.
Yeah. Okay.
The next section shows expenditures in the general fund by expense type. That's salaries, benefits, operations, capital, and transfers. I just have two comments on that. This total salaries, you notice the year-to-date in this year is lower than last year, and that's primarily because the IT department is no longer being reported in the general fund.
But we also did have a reduction in the number of total full-time equivalent positions.
We did, yes. Total benefits, you see, has gone up by a fair amount. There's two primary reasons for this. First, if you recall from our budget discussions, our PERS rates went up a lot this year, and so we're now kind of seeing that come through on the expense side. Also, because of the way we're on our payroll cycle is every 2 weeks now, and so because of the way that they fall into the months, they're different from one year to the next. Last year, July through December, we had 6 months of medical premiums recorded. This year, July through December, we actually have 7. So there's an extra month of medical premiums in this year-to-date number, and those medical premiums are quite a bit of money, so they make an impact. The next section shows those same expenses, but instead of showing them by expense type, it actually shows them by division or department within the general fund. Just a couple comments on this. Increase in the library fund. In fiscal year 10-11, we had budgeted for a new position in library. That position was not filled until the end of November, so those expenses were pretty much not there from July to December. And there's associated benefit costs with that too, the medical expenses and PERS and all that. Court expenses, you might notice, are quite a bit lower than last year, although it's not a large dollar amount. The primary change there, as you know, we had a couple changes. The court clerk that worked here for some time retired, and we hired a new employee. Typically, when we hire a new employee, they start at the lower part of the grade and work up. Also, we changed from a full-time person in court to a .6, and that's had the biggest impact. Not only does that change the number of hours that we pay for, it changed the benefit costs. The benefit coverages are different for part-time versus full-time people. Also, last year, There was some medical leaves, which we hired additional staffing to help cover for.
Maybe I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'd noticed, the city council line item had been extravagantly high this quarter from last quarter, not the item on this column, not last year's second quarter, but actually I saw that it went up roughly $6,000 from the first quarter, your first quarter report.
City council expenditures?
Yeah. And I was trying to figure out what the items were in second quarter.
Some of that, I think, was technology purchases.
Could have been.
Yeah, and I think, there could be timing issues on memberships.
Because it's pretty consistent with second quarter of last year, so it didn't alarm me. I couldn't think of.
I'll take a look.
Because if Gary is starting to get into,
no. It's not individual
fancy dinners or something.
I can just say right now, it is not individual council members' expenditures. They've been very low.
I don't know if you noticed, but I did not eat a thing tonight. Not a thing. I just drink water.
Now, this council, very, very low on individual expenditures, meaning trainings, that type of thing. Although we've got, a lot more opportunities coming up. So,
thank you.
Building department expenditures are up again a bit, but that is a direct correlation with volume and with revenues. Recreation department is down somewhat from last year. The reduction in cost is primarily in the operations and capital areas. So all comments I had on the general fund expenditures.
Any questions from council on general fund? Okay.
The next fund that we look at is the police public safety fund. Transient room tax revenues, which you'll see in a couple other funds, are down just a little bit. But it looks, the revenues in total look good. On the expenditures, speaking of detecting errors, one of the new things we've got set up this year, as I mentioned earlier, was having the IT department and an internal service fund and then doing allocations. I noticed we actually haven't begun those yet, so that allocation entry is missing out of the operational costs, the year-to-date, and that's partly why that percent, that 34.7, is so low. If that allocation had been made, it would be about 43% of total budget, so I will get that corrected. I didn't have anything else on police. Public safety, the only comment I had was on the total operations. It went up, it looks like it increased a lot. There's an annual payment for the computer-aided dispatch system. This is, again, a timing thing. It happened in the first half of the year this year. Last year, that payment was made in January. So you'll see it catch up on the next quarter. Next fund we look at is water operations. Revenues in here look like they're tracking the way we were anticipating. On the expenditure side, the total salaries, the percent of the total has gone up some, but the budget number for this year is quite a bit lower than what the year-end number was last year, and I believe that has a lot to do with the water emergencies that they had to pay to cover. And so that made the salaries last year be higher than we normally would have had.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Oh, may I ask, relative to the emergencies, with the FEMA reimbursements, then that would be on next, not this document, but...
The FEMA reimbursements would be on the revenue side. And I don't recall if that's come in.
Yeah, because that would have come in this year.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, whatever.
Oh. So it hasn't actually come in yet.
Oh, okay. Checks in the mail.
It's coming. We hope. Again, on the total, the benefits are a little higher again because of the PERS rates going up and the extra month of medical coverage in the year-to-date number. Total operations, if we had that allocation for IT and GIS included, the year-to-date percent would be 38 instead of what you're currently seeing at 33.9. That's all the comments I had on water.
Cool.
The sewer fund, revenues look okay on here, perhaps a tad bit lower than what we were planning on, but they are still higher than last year. And the only comment on the expense side is, again, that internal allocation that we needed to do. That would change the operating percent from 43 to 47% of budget. I need to review these before I actually send them out to you, and then I can get these fixed. Street operations and street capital, again, I don't have any comments on them. They look like they're going according to plan. Street capital, you might notice the total operations. By December of fiscal year 10-11, we had spent all the money that we spent for the year, and it looks like we've done the same thing this year. Any questions?
Then the graphs attached kind of tell the same story, just in picture form.
Yes.
With her.
Questions from council? You know, I can tell you, Debbie, I appreciate the quicker turnaround this quarter, you know, from last. And it, you know, it is, because the quarter end would have been the end of December, and here we are, you know, middle of January. So it's very effective, and appreciate it. Other question, Chester?
Gibby, on the first graph, general fund revenues, transient room taxes indicates less than $400,000. Is that correct?
In the general fund,
Yes.
transit room tax should be right about $300,000.
And yet, don't we collect around $4 million in transient room taxes?
Yes, but it goes to various funds.
Various other funds.
Only a small piece goes to the general fund.
All right. Thank you.
The general fund gets 5%, I believe it's 5% for collection. And then the net of the rest of that is split up based on what the voters have decided over the years at various, some goes to streets, some to parks, VCB, et cetera. Police.
Thank you.
Other questions? Don't go away. I do have to ask. We're still looking for expenses tied to, for VCB, the process to look at expenses per exhibit or event. Is that, you know, in the process, or because it's now been half a year? Any indication of when that might be?
We're going to have the VCB total presentation at the workshop that you scheduled.
That'll be at the work session?
We'll have that for that.
That's great. Thank you. So I just want to make sure it's in the process.
Yeah, I've been working on it.
Great. Other questions from council? All right. Thank you. Oh, we do have one.
I'd like to go back. We didn't cover the Urban Renewal Agency audit, Debbie. But on page 14, it refers to incremental value, which is the value achieved after the assessed value was frozen.
The base, yes.
Can you tell me what increase in incremental value we've had as a result of the urban renewal plan district?
I can get it for you. It might actually be in the statement. I'm not sure, but I can get it. We track that.
All right.
I'm sorry, I don't know it off
Okay.
my head.
Thank you.
Sure.
right. City manager reports. And we've got vacation rental dwelling consensus builder selection.
Yeah, I gave you a memo on that. Kind of summarized, we received 7 proposals. It was an advertised request for proposals, plus we mailed or emailed companies that we knew did that kind of work. We received 7 proposals. Previously, I had given you a report how 5 staff members rated the various ones. Then I looked a little closer at some of the proposals, and in particular one that had a total cost well over our budget, and because they had extras in there. Their base bid was fine. Taking out those extras, I felt that we had too thin of a proposal, and felt that they should be disqualified, and 2 others that I felt were, and the committee felt that reviewed these, felt that were too thin. That left 4 that we did reference checks on, and we have gotten references, at least 2 references on each of those remaining 4. And it's not my plan to try to summarize that tonight. What I'm here tonight to do is to get some guidance from council on how to get to the next step, which is, number 1, if we can narrow that 4 down to 3 or 2, and then get those 3 or 2 in for a face-to-face interview. My suggestion and recommendation was that 3 members of this body be appointed to do those 2 tasks and report back to the council as a whole, and the staff would assist. We would assist in giving you the references and sitting in on interviews, etc. But I think it would be best if council wants a significant role in this, and it's going to be very, very visible and very public, and so I'd recommend that you do so. But if you wish, staff can do the rest of this ourselves and come back to you if that's your druthers. But I think it might work better if council had some direct involvement in it. So that's what I would recommend, but any way you want to go is fine with us.
Discussion from council? Mr. Sprague?
When I looked at the rankings that the staff gave each of those consultants, with the one that was thrown out, the top 2 are significantly higher, it looks to me like, than the rest of the rankings. So it would seem to me that the best thing to do is to narrow it down to those 2, and I would be happy to take part in the interviews as well.
Well, but I'd like a committee of council to look over our shoulder on that. So we let's say we keep all 4 in until we have a first meeting of a committee, 3-member committee. At that point, we'd like you to hear the results of the reference checks. Okay. And then, if it's 2, it's 2. If it's 3, it's 3. If it's 4, it's 4. I would prefer not 4, because that's a lot of scheduling and a lot of people coming here and so on. But I would feel more comfortable if council would look over our shoulders on that.
Well, I think that's a good idea. As I say, I'd be happy to volunteer to be one of those people.
Okay. And I would as well. I'd like to be involved in that. So.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
Okay. Is that all right with the others? If the 3, Craig, myself, and Mr. Ward, acted as and then sat in and came back to you.
That would be great.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll have Rebecca contact the 3 of you to see when you can get in and spend an hour with just going over the references and chatting among yourselves, and maybe a couple of members of the staff that actually went through these.
Right. That would be helpful. Yeah.
I'd like to beg out just of that particular part.
And then see if we can cut that down to, a couple, 2 to 3.
Right.
And then do interviews.
Yep.
That'd be good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, council.
That's all I had, Mayor, unless... Joe? Okay.
All right, short. I had for you, so we're not going to let you off the hook. Would this be a good time? Could we refresh council on the work sessions that we had spoken about last meeting? We had come up with February 21st. We'd frozen dates on these. But again, thinking of topics, and you and I were doing some scheduling.
Right. Because of a potential significant grant opportunity, we would like to do the Schooner Creek watershed first, which is the first of those dates, and Kathy will have to remind everybody of that. And that would be in chambers here, probably one of our tables down here. Public, of course, invited to any of these.
That's February 21st?
Correct.
I left my...
Yeah.
Yes.
I have 10 o'clock down, is that right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then the second one would be the VCB, where we'll take you through the whole thing, and of course what the mayor just mentioned a little while ago about the whole program and the costs, et cetera. And that one is scheduled for
The 6th of March, I think.
Yes, March 6th, 10 to noon.
and the third one, because we really want Ron Tierney there. Did he leave?
Yep.
And he had booked other dates, would be for affordable housing opportunities. And that one, again, was
14th.
March 14th.
But in the
from 1 to
afternoon,
3.
at
Yeah, in
1
the
to 3.
afternoon.
O'clock, yeah.
So I hope that works for everybody.
And, before anybody gets excited, if you've noted, the VCB work session is in March. Contrary, and so I'm asking for your tolerance here, we'd commented before under the fireworks issue and stuff to bring it back in February, but would like to deal with all this kind of stuff at this work session.
Okay.
Because
We could have done it with the first one, except I don't want to miss having council have a real good hard look at the watershed because of the grant opportunity that we've got coming.
Good.
So I'm sorry. Assured Mr. Hawker that council would not have objections to foregoing and dealing with VCB in March. So stay with me, will you?
Thank you, Mayor.
Hearing no objection, moving on. One other item, Mr. Hawker, and forgive me, but last meeting we dealt with the community center rates, and it was encouraging, I guess, to hear the testimony that we were actually setting rates too low, that we should be, even though we were moving them up, we should be moving them up higher and whatnot. So to me, that reaffirms that we've got a good operation going and want to keep it that, and we know it's undervalued, but we're moving it up. But some of the testimony was concerns about the operation, specifically lockers and locks, and more of the operation of the community center. And it's amazing, once you hear it, I've heard it a lot this last couple of weeks. Could you shed some light on, what's going on at the community center? I understand there may be some systems issues.
Yeah, there are.
Difficulty.
There's two systems issues. One is the card system that lets people into the fitness rooms blew up on us, essentially, and they're reworking that. The other system is we're converting from one set of software that manages all the memberships and gives you the statistics on how many people and how many dollars of different types that we get and so on. We're switching systems partially so that people can register and pay online, and so it's a total new accounting system, if you will, for accounting and cost accounting system for recreation. And that's caused some of the problems that we've seen. And then we also had some equipment problems that were mentioned, which is going to happen. We got we can't afford the price. Well, we can't afford. We feel it's more economical, for example, on the treadmills to buy used, reconditioned, guaranteed items, and because they're about a third, I think they're about $6,000 or $7,000 each, new, and where we have had real good luck with used, reconditioned, warranted ones. Well, we got one that had a bad motor on it. Okay, it's under warranty. The motor's come. I think they've got it fixed. That's going to happen. Okay, and we're trying to do it as economically as possible. And once in a while, there's going to be equipment failures.
Any expectation of, for example, the locks on lockers and getting...
The locks on lockers, I'm trying to remember what was said about that.
Something about, we can't get evidently the locks aren't working, or a multitude of them are.
Oh.
We can't get...
Well, that's a never-ending problem. So let's...
Because they were made in Germany.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is
Couldn't get parts.
well, it's not quite that simple. So you put a quarter in the locker. I mean, if you rent a locker, there's no issue. Okay, if you rent a locker by the quarter or by the year, you have your own lock. It's done. Okay, but if you want to use one of the day lockers, you put a quarter in, and that lets you lock it and take the key out. And if that's all that happens, you've got the key and we've got your quarter, which is what's happened to some of these. Okay. Normally, you would open the locker and get your stuff out and get your quarter back. Well, if you just choose to keep the key, we've got a problem. So we're trying to resolve that. We may go with locks that don't return the quarter, that we keep the quarters and use that to offset some of the expenses of key making and so on. So yeah, I mean that's probably a few months out before we're going to solve that problem.
If you kept the key, Mr. Hawker, wouldn't you lose everything in your locker?
Yeah.
And people are willing to do that?
Well, assuming I'm not going to get into that any further. Can you talk to me later?
Sure.
So,
I don't want to give a how-to.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I guess the degree of comfort for systems and upgrades, and back to the smooth running community center and anticipation.
Oh, I think we'll still be a couple of weeks on that.
Okay.
The lockers, I think we've been fighting this problem on and off. It's not a huge problem. It happens. If I sneeze, please excuse me. It's going to be a long time fixing this problem unless we get some onerous deposit. The card system that I mentioned, for example, if you don't have a membership and you want a card to get into our locker or into the fitness room, we take your driver's license, for example. If you're willing to give up your driver's license in exchange for that card, you can walk away with a card, and people do. They leave their driver's license or they leave whatever and walk away with that card. So we're down on cards, and we didn't expect that to happen as much as it has. So we're having to get new cards, getting them programmed, and so on. Wow. You just don't expect some things to happen that happen.
You're dealing with a rough crowd.
No, I think it's a forgetful crowd.
That may be.
Yeah. Leave without your
Mr. Mayor,
a couple of years. I mean, it's not.
Mr. Mayor,
a new thing.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah, the mic, Mr. Ward.
So beyond this, we looked at, since some of these things are happening, we looked at maybe it's the time to switch. For example, to have a strip on the membership card that lets you into the fitness. And we're debating that staff-wise as to which way to go on that before we invest a lot more money in the existing system. So we're taking a little bit of time. We're going through a few wrinkles right now. We'll get them straightened out.
Okay. Councilor Sprague?
My wife asked me about the membership cards there, and she said she checked with the desk. She goes there almost every day and walks. And she checked with the desk to make sure that the renewal was coming in on the card. It said, when does my card expire? Well, it was 6 months back, but she was using the card and going in there every day. And so do we have any kind of a notice procedure so that when the things are expiring that we let them know when it's time to renew?
The new software is going to go ding, ding, ding.
Okay. Because I think we're losing some revenue.
Oh, I think we have. I think we've caught most of that, but it can happen, and we're trying to tighten that up, and the new system's definitely going to help.
Good.
I guess the only other thing that I'd heard was that the implication that the system may have crashed with membership information, because evidently some of the customers have been approached to verify their membership.
Yeah, the old system crashed. I think that we got it back up running, but what happened is that a lot of that old information was put in various different formats. First name, comma, last name, comma, first name, all kinds of things like that. So we're asking everybody on the new system, what we want to do is start off with a clean, it's right from the first day on. So we're asking everybody to fill out the information that's required so we can make sure that the new system is starting off right.
We may want to readdress or, some new training on how that is getting translated to the consumer, because that's the piece I'm hearing, and it hasn't been a pleasant experience for the consumer. Those who've spoken to me, it's felt like they have to prove who they are and their membership rather than assisting in a new upgrade. Because I thought it was the upgrade of the system.
It is.
And we just need to communicate that a little, if we could, some new emphasis on that.
Yeah, they don't have to prove anything. We're just asking to get it right. Okay.
Maybe just a heads up on it.
We'll give them a heads up.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for those. And I apologize. There were notes that came up. And again, reminding citizens that, when things come before council, we do try to hang on to them and see if we can get them resolved during the week, share information.
And the other, I didn't mention this when you mentioned the workshops. The other item that we're doing is a special 1-hour session of urban renewal, looking at the whole range of opportunities that exist for us for the remaining time of urban renewal before we present you a budget. So maybe at the next meeting, or either 2 weeks from today or 4 weeks from today, we're going to have a 1-hour session at urban renewal, just going through the alternatives. Here's what we can do. Here's our alternatives of what we can do for our remaining years of urban renewal, and hoping to get some direction on that. So that's a workshop, kind of a workshop, but it's going to be in a regular session.
During the session, yeah.
Okay.
So that's good, yeah. Good reminder. Thank you. Okay, this would now be the time for public hearing. And we have ordinance number 2012-01, amending Lincoln City utility billing procedures, amending ordinance number 2005-05 and 78-37, and amending Lincoln City Municipal Code Section 13.12.100.
I just have a couple of comments before you move this ordinance. Since I wasn't at your last meeting, and there were some comments also this evening, what I wanted to clarify was that the city utility billing process has had a termination and cutoff procedure in the city's ordinance for, as far as I know, going on 30-some-odd years. And it lays out, as part of that process, the ability for a customer to challenge the city's determination that an account is delinquent. And it lays out the timelines and the right of the customer to request review, to submit evidence, and for the city then to consider that and make a determination. What I've proposed in this ordinance, and if you adopt what the city will include, is a clarification that procedures the city has already used when it terminates water service for failure of the property owner to provide required consent to annex would fall under this same procedure. My understanding is that's the procedure that has been used in the past at least 6 or 7 years. I thought it was appropriate to just clarify that. This will not change the timeline and will not change the substantive due process that is already provided.
And, Joan, you included, help answer questions from last meeting as far as clarification on the timeline, and this memo did that. It was in the packet. Again, Councilor Norikis' last meeting was going through the draft ordinance and, again, verbalizing the delays, not delays, but the time sequence on the actual process. And I think if I'm reading this right, it could easily be, 50-plus days. Correct? Am I?
Right. I think that's the broadest period of time. My understanding is that sometimes when there's a utility bill where the notice has already been sent earlier, that sometimes those notice periods can be conflated if the notice of delinquency is already provided on the earlier utility bill. But I don't get involved in the billing process, and they're the experts at it.
Appreciate that. The other, as I was going down the agenda, and I stated public hearing. There are no public hearings. We're dealing with ordinance issue, and this is an ordinance, as I stated, number 2012-01. And this is the ordinance. At last meeting, we had a draft and reviewed the draft. It was blue-lined. The insertions were there, and this is the ordinance to take action on. And any questions or clarifications needed? Questions? Okay. With that, then I'd entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2012-01.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second for approve ordinance number 2012-01, amending Lincoln City's utility billing procedures, amending ordinance number 2005-05 and 78-37, and amending Lincoln City Municipal Code Section 13.12.100. Roll call, please.
Norikis?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Quant? Anderson?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Eggleton? And Ellingson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now would be the time for additional comments from citizens present. If you had any extra thoughts or comments, this would be the time. More than welcome. Hearing none, we'll go to councilors. Councilor Ward, anything?
No,
from you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm good.
You're good as well, Gary. Thank you. Councilor Norikis?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Councilor Sprague?
I'm mute.
Really? Councilor Hagelton?
I'm quiet.
All right. Mr. Quant?
I'll concede my time to the mayor because I know he's got to have something to say.
Actually, I'm a short list tonight. I do happen to have a couple of things, so since you asked. I would be remiss if I didn't remind the citizens of Lincoln City that there's an event this Saturday, besides Jambalaya, that there's in these chambers between 11:30 and 2:30, Lincoln City walking and biking plan will be displayed. Opportunity to discuss and view and add comments. So it should be a good event as you either go up or down from the Jambalaya. And so I would ask you to put that on your agenda for this coming Saturday, the 28th. The other item, with joy, I think, councilors, you all need to know there is a new, shiny new disclosure form for background checks. Again, we heard in this chamber some confusion about previous background checks and what we were, what a citizen was authorizing us to do. We've revised the form significantly. I think it's right to the point, clearly stating that for committee appointments, it's a background check. And I think we're now utilizing this and hoping it will continue to avoid confusion that we're looking into credit and, everything else where we're not. So that's out and in the packets. And in talking to citizens, as we're made the appointment tonight for Planning Commission, I would remind people that the vast majority of the vacancies have been not appointed yet, but certainly recommended going through the process. We're working now on Budget Committee, the incubator, and I think some scattered vacancies. But it's worked well. I'm continue to be amazed and pleased with the number of committee citizens that come forth and ask for appointment. So I think it's working, and pleased with that. With that, Gary, before I'm looking at you only because I've got the note from the Transportation Committee.
Oh, yes. There was a little confusion there. The meeting was posted, and then I heard that it was canceled and then posted again. It was actually canceled.
Okay.
Because of weather. And some of the people that attend, there had been an issue with the highway that maybe now is more fixed, or maybe is more certain or less in question than it was from them coming from as far away as Walport. And so the meeting was canceled.
And this is the one you sit on our behalf as far as the county public transportation district, and so thank you for having that on your agenda anyway.
No problem. I was ready.
Councilor Ward?
Could I, there's a group of, about a year ago we started the Lincoln City Young Professionals here in Lincoln City, and this coming Wednesday and then the next two subsequent Wednesdays at 6 p.m. at the Community College, room 211. We've organized and we're hosting a series of professional development kind of seminar classes hosted by Chris Waugh, or facilitated by Chris Waugh, and going over resume development and polishing and interview techniques, and just kind of honing tools, even if you're maybe happy in whatever job you may be in, just something that can provide some personal satisfaction, that type of thing. And there'll be 2 hours the next 3 Wednesdays at the community college. It's free to all, snacks, that type of thing.
That's a great service and great resource. So Wednesday nights, what time again?
6 o'clock, 6 to 8.
6 to 8 at the community college here in Lincoln City.
Yeah, you bet.
And is there an age limit, though? It's called, the title is called Young Professionals. Does that exclude some of us?
It excludes nobody.
Okay.
Anybody who's interested in professional development.
75.
We're hearing some pretty nice things about that group and getting legs. It's a help to this community and this city.
It's certainly been, just beyond even the networking aspect of it, it's certainly been, I think, a benefit.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. With that, that's all I'll have. Shall we adjourn for the evening and well before 8 o'clock?